Where are you? Oh, there you are. So, Mardijah is originally from England and came to Australia, what, 74 was it? Or
70.
In the 70s. And you told me that when you came here, the only coffee you could find was Nescafe, which was already shows who you are, because you were looking at coffee for coffee in the 70s when most English people drank tea. So I think that that is characteristic of who you are. And Mardijah has always been writing poetry and has also published her poetry. When she was in Alice Springs, she was able to do that. So we'll just go straight to it because we've had some, and to the reading if you're ready to read. Yes, and then we can ask some questions afterwards.
Sure, okay.
Okay.
So do we have a shorter time or can we go to the 20 minutes as planned?
Well, that's why it's better not to introduce you too much for too long. So you go straight to the reading. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. This is a poem I wrote in Central Australia, inland. We walked across the wide bare plain, flat, dry earth, parched grass, hemmed by lilting hills. To the world-weary eye it would seem bleak, no water, few flowers, and birdless, stony ground. Yet we were enchanted. Each stone held a story. Swirls and clusters of stone patterned the ground as our eyes learnt the language of the land. Gold chips like fallen beads from the range tops. Clear quartz, glazed black, shimmering cream, and marble white as lizard eggs. Scrapers, knives, hammerheads, spears. We decoded the past, smelted time, heard the hum of history, and ate déjeuner sans herbe in the rippled river bed. There is nothing here, explorer. There is everything here, huntsman. That one seems to, people who live in Alice seem to like that one. I'm not sure if it makes sense to people far away. Here's another one. This is some of you may have known Raina McKechnie from New Zealand. She was a very committed SWOD member. She was zone rep for a while. She was international helper. And at the Christchurch International Congress, she wasn't able to come in person, so we visited, and this is a farewell to Raina. The clumps of small pink roses that had flounced bold along the street with chintzy smiles had, in the night's cold wind's cold night, lost their youth, faded. Scorched and battered old roses hung on bare stalks, spiked above drifts of windswept petals. A reckless new crop budded bright. You nest on fleece in the white bed, your canny eyes mist green vague stars. Your voice wakes to speak. Slowly you join us, morphing in a visitor from far away. Outside the wind still blows, white roses in full bloom stripped bare festoon the path, waiting, as your small lantern of bones shines through the mist. I miss her very much. Here's another Alice one, set in my bath green bathroom. Daphne remembered it. She and the family came in those days to visit. I don't think she met this one. But the moth in the bath. In the pearly prison of the bath you lie, fragile, still, trapped, folded softly like a bud, dried leaf or strange seed pod. Cinnamon dust shimmers on your wings. 1,000 eggs embroider the white enamel like seed pearls. Small clumps and clusters gleam. Did you blow in on the evening breeze and crash land in this smooth trap? Did you shed your load in panic, or are moth births always so multiple? If you stay, you'll be washed away. If I return you to the night, will you miss your children, but recall the luminance as a glimpse of heaven? This is another Alice one, where I was reflecting on How ordinary things link up and connect all over the place through time and space. And this one is called Salt Stories. Smelling salt on skin within the wood smoke tang as the river people float by in the hot air, I remember. Licking your brown skin, fresh as new pretzels, savouring the salt from the beach day's bake. Paddling across low tide rocks embossed with cup holes, wind and weather drink them dry, leaving margarita-like a rim of salt. Smelling that Pacific surf, flung in the shimmer blue sky, flying water too fine to see, salt-scent flowers in the air. Soaking in the round tin bath, cooling salt water cured me while the baby launched by water lay, birthed in the basket nearby. Searching in the yellow bag among the round saltless crisps gold folds, small fingers find that blue screw of hidden salt. Rubbing a handful of salt, crunchy crystals on oil-glazed skin to bejewel the baked chicken. Walking across salt lake crust of pink and crumbly as coconut ice, wrapped by silver saltbush. Standing with a sad boy way out on the flat salt surface, grating on thin emotional ice. He sure there is no chance of return. Distracting myself from sorrow as tears run down my cheeks, my tongue seeks and licks the salt surprise. Flowing silk, fluid as tides, saturated in rich wet colours, soaks up the scattered salt to leave this fragile pattern. Rinsing the long white cloth in a salt solution in a blue bowl to fix my red earth body print here in fabric forever. Here's another desert one, another element, fire. Excuse me. The heart of the camp, awake and burning as we shift into the dark of sleep. Flames in the night, red lights on charred black, hot surf on the ash. Erratic desert gusts twist and curl invisible, except in the fire's tango. Curves, parabola, spirals, flutter, burst and wave, to hissing snaps and soft thuds. Tongues sing old lullabies. Text flows across the blackboard world in the language of forever. I'll just keep going until Daphne says I've done too much. This one I wrote down here, completely different country. Southern New South Wales, on a marsh I live. This is called greening. This marsh country, an ancient ocean bed, when fossil shells formed, is now laced with rivers, creeks, streams, and swamps. Waves of lush green pasture lap the land, and crests of plumed rushes surf the sky. Blankets of soft grey mist wrap the ranges. In the black swan years, waterlogged nests float on the rich mud, carry cargoes of treasured eggs. A water world reveals green islands moored to shell-shingled shores, where oysters as ever embroider rocks at low tide. Unmapped pools and lakes appear and disappear at the whim of the sun, yet the herons and egrets and ibis chart their routes. The long time tide may turn until the old ocean reclaims the land, over the days, months, years, and centuries. Would seaweed flourish while the flathead and bluefin and the rays once more swim down drowned paths, lanes, and roads? The balance is so subtle, the change so quiet. Only the tree frogs note as the songlines spawn another story. The highlands watch, frowning a little. The surf pounds the escarpment's green foam, the white water blossom. This is me challenging the status quo. This is the title. I will not wear old lady shoes, but rather go barefoot to my grave, feet hard and happy from strange roads, unshrouded, unbound but undulating, until at last I dance myself into the ground. Mistress of my own amazement, unmasked, my sadness mapped and celebrated. Time, forgotten and forgiven, spirals up as I spin my dancing story, weave my way. Watching the world with unrequited love until uncloaked from the invisibility of age, I explode, evaporate, dissolve, or gently fold into forever. This is the last one. It's a little bit long, but I hope you can bear with me. I wrote it after we'd been at a World Council meeting in Brazil, and lots of people were going down to the waterfall far away. I wasn't, but I've always loved waterfalls. There's one up in the Blue Mountains, and I remember them in Ireland. So I was thinking about them and saturating myself. So this is the poem that somehow flowed into me. At the waterfall. The Teesside can no longer tell if everything falls forever or fountains endlessly up. White light, white noise, streaming down forever, moving down and down and down. Damp air soothes the skin, shards of water split and spray, fleeting prisms into the curve of angel wings and through of petticoats. Eternal and ephemeral, veils of mist, ironically burnish hard rock. The froth of ripple and rush, the splash and drip of drops, everything changes constantly. Nothing changes ever. The silent, endless roar disconnects the ears from cues. Beat of heart and throb of blood are all part of this liquid universe. White light sparks, white as cherry blossom, white as drifting snow, white as wise woman's hair. Words for whiteness from the tongues of the world, singing of white, chanting whiteness, praying white, white as milk, white as a chalk stroke, wild as weeping white tears, white as manuscripts telling their stories, white as bread feeding 5,000, white as flags seeking peace, the 101 names of white. The mist, as soft as kisses, seeps into hair, skin, clothes, until there is no separation between then and now, between outer and inner, between thee and me. The sound, like breathing, fills ears, lungs, veins, until there is no gap between other and self, between pain and pleasure, between ego and spirit. Time is washed away, diluted into always, on and on and on, from above to below, up and up and up, from our small point to a space beyond place, before time, after forever. The light, like life, transforms all forms, transcends desire, turns fear to calm, turns anger to peace, turns us towards grace. That's the bunch I collected together, bits and pieces I might share with you. Can you hear me, Daphne?
Yes, I can hear you.
Have I got some more time, or do we need to?
Oh, yes. Am I on? Can you do the ant on the post? I like that.
Yes, I can. There's one more then. This is just another funny one. It's the same type as the moth one. Again, from Central Australia. There'd been a panic. I think they said foreign ants were invading Australia and everyone was worried they'd take over the country or something. The ant on the post. Late in the dark night, in the pool of light, by the gate as I fasten the chain to keep the night frights out, I see him standing still and bold on the white rail fence. He's very small, but big, legs braced, pincers alert. I peer close to check. Are you a bad big head or not? He quivers with the arrogance of a flamenco dancer, bold but not big-headed. A miniature brown shrimp. Two black eyes, small as pinpricks, gaze resolutely at me. Guardian of the gate. The night will be soft, safe.
Yeah.
There's one poem I had thought to read to you, but I simply can't find it. It's very elusive. I wrote it in London about a year before I joined Subud, Ramdahn and I had been looking and not joining things, but reading and reflecting and looking for a spiritual path. And I wrote this poem and I called it Blind Man's Path, and it was about seeking for something intangible. And I don't know where the poem came from. The words just evolved over some days, and I worked on it. And then I put it away. And after we found Subud and started Latihan, I found it again. And it described exactly how it is when you find Subud and what the Latihan is and how you should be. And the poem had told me that, but I didn't understand when I wrote it. But I still can't find it. I know it's somewhere safe. I found it a couple of months ago, and now it's disappeared. It doesn't want to be read aloud to the public, I think.
Possibly. Yeah. So.
Poetry, I find, yeah, Alice was interesting. I was working on my own away from the children who'd grown up, and I met some other people who were writers. And it was a very creative atmosphere, the centre is. And I belonged to a writers group. We shared works in progress. Some of us were poets, some are journalists, some wrote short stories, or a mixture. And we evolved, we just worked together in a way. We didn't critique things in an intellectual, analytical way. We just shared and asked more explanation if we did. And then we got together and got some cultural grants to publish, which was extraordinary and very exciting for me. 2 or 3 of us. There's one, I put several of them. I did, for some reason, ended up doing the accounts and the money and the marketing. This was one.
I have that one. I have that book. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No Seward people there, but there was just a local group of women, predominantly women, but we opened up. But working together, it makes you realize it's possible to do anything, because with no ambitions or plans. We didn't expect to make money or a fortune. But yeah, but all the time behind it, I had my Latihan, and I just sort of knew if I winged it and I trusted, things would work out. And they seemed to, which was lovely. I've still got more writing in me. I don't know if I'll have time in this life to finish it, but we'll see.
But would you want to talk a bit more about this thing that happens where you write something and then see what it was, or it's like a precursor of something? I mean, I wrote something recently, and and then somebody died because it didn't make sense. I didn't know who I wrote it to, so what do we think is happening there?
You're into what's in the air, and you don't realize you're receiving something that's in the air, and you can't plan it or organize necessarily for that to happen. It's just a gift, I suppose. You have to be open to possibilities when they just hit you. There was a period when I used to always, when I came down from Alice for holidays, I'd always take a notebook in my bag. There seemed to be a lot of sitting in buses going to visit from different family or friends. And I started writing haiku and tanka, which are the 5-line short poems. Because you're sitting in a bus, it's too disruptive to write long poems, but I'd make little notes. But yeah, that was a period which was interesting. I don't seem to, now I'm here and settled. Well, I'm getting older, I guess. Maybe I'm getting lazy. They don't come so often, but they'll come when they want to, I guess.
Yeah. Also, sometimes what amazes me is that if I say, okay, I'm feeling more in the zone, and I put a little booklet next to my bed, then I'll write something before I go to sleep, or write something when I wake up. And you're even just putting the little book there means you open that.
That's right. That's right.
That page happen, but it depends on, because then you have to transcribe them, which so
the other thing, I do some quite long drives when I came south. I drive down from Sydney to Canberra to visit a family there, and it's a long, beautiful drive, but I'd be out of range of music on the radio, so I just start thinking about words that flow through my head, just my feelings about the landscape or the country or something or other. And one time I got this wonderful poem, but I hadn't got the notebook. And then a year later I remembered I was doing the same drive, and I thought, oh, I wrote a poem about that, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So I decided to write another one about that trip beside an amazing lake near Canberra that's called Lake George, well, the Western name for it. It always disappears and then it reappears. And I just thought, the poem had done the same thing.
Yeah.
But I just love the flavour of words. I'm no good at other languages, but English I find such a rich selection of words and sounds.
My dear, it's Harry Auntie, and
Harry
having
Auntie, there
been
you go.
Hi, Harry Auntie.
hi, having seen just a little bit of the Alice when I came to stay with you, I'd never forgotten it, and I was very moved by it, deeply impressed, and I loved your poems about it, especially that line, "The eyes learn the language of the land." Lovely, thank you.
Oh, you write too, though, don't you?
I'm trying to pluck up courage to do what you're doing, but I'm not sure whether I have that much courage yet.
But Harriante, you see how kind and patient everybody is around here. It's a good way to start, you know, because
but
we're
then I've read
sort of
yours
learning
and
together.
I've read Mardijah's. Yeah. Anyway, maybe I will. I'll send some to Emmanuel maybe and see.
And of course, because we've got 4 Australian people here, you know, and Maya is transplanted to the States. It's just the differences in the language as well is something that I've always found interesting, and how, you know, there is a characteristic for English poetry and American poetry and Australian poetry, and how the words create a different feel in the way we use them, because the landscape itself does something. So do you have kind of Australian poems and English poems, or what?
I think, well, it's partly just growing up and having a family and having a career, sort of, and having the Lattihan as a sort of constant background to the whole of my adult life from my mid-20s. I just find, and also I worked as a community worker for a long time with Indigenous people and multicultural people in Sydney. And I realized how obscure some English is in formal documents, a lot of Latinate words that are abstract, you can't visualize. So I'm really fond of plain English, and to try and write in a way like that when I was writing, you know, for my work, I realized I think I brought that into my poetry. I didn't like long abstract words. And I realized when I was looking through choosing poems to share with you, or the books we were doing, that it's almost like I'm painting pictures with the words. Often it's a visual image that starts by me reflecting on something or an experience. And then I'm sort of searching for like mixing your colors when you're doing a painting. I'm sort of looking for the exact words that convey the feeling of that experience or that, you know, time. Yeah, that's the way I think the words come for me. I don't like intellectual poetry that's too smart by half. I can understand it, but it isn't a world I'm interested in very much.
It's the content, isn't it, that touches people. It's if it's real, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, Mardijah, this is Harris. How are you? Harris.
I know, Harris. I can see you peeping like a tiny postage stamp at the top of my screen.
I particularly liked your poem about not wearing old ladies' shoes.
Oh,
I thought that was a really good poem, and I thought it was a very universal poem, because I think it can probably apply to all of us here. I think your line was mapping and celebrating the past. Was that the line? Something like that. Mapping and celebrating. I thought that was a really good line. I could use that as like an epigram for just about everything I write at the present time. So that's a really good poem and a really good line, I thought.
I read it aloud. There was a concert we helped organize. University of the Third Age up in Alice was quite a dynamic group, and there were lots of other more sedate and quiet and old people's groups, and they had a mega big concert once a year on Seniors Week or something. And I read it. I think some people liked it, other people didn't know what I was talking about. Because I can still remember my grandmother used to wear hideous shoes when she was old. So it was like, no way, I'm not going there. But which was the bit you particularly liked? Do you remember? Say it, tell me again.
The poem was the one about you were not going to wear old lady's shoes. And the line that particularly struck me said something like, mapping and celebrating my past.
My sadness mapped and celebrated, yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
that
men
was a
don't
great
wear
poem.
such ugly shoes.
Sorry?
Men don't tend to wear such ugly shoes when they get, well, never, but not old either. You'll have to think of another
Yeah.
obstacle to escape
But-
from.
Yeah, it's, I guess the
my
metaphor, we
copy-
understand the metaphor.
I'm glad you like it. You're welcome
No,
to
it's
use
very
it
good,
anytime.
very good poem. It was so universal, it was really excellent.
Yeah.
Reverberated across everyone, I think. We all reach that point in life when it's kind of like that Proustian experience where we retire from life to some extent and reflect on what the whole thing's been all about. And mapping and celebrating is a very good way to express it, I thought. Yeah.
I'd originally planned to write an ode of thanks to my legs. You know, all the mapping
yeah.
of my legs in old age,
That's a
but I
good
didn't.
idea.
It was a bit gross in the end, and I couldn't get the words, and then I just did the shoes instead.
You could write a whole book of poems with every part of the body.
Yeah.
One could indeed.
The aging body. Yes.
Speak for yourself.
Some parts might be
Well.
unprintable.
Mum,
think
it's
it's-
Halima. Can you
Sorry,
hear me, Mum? It's Halima.
Hi,
I
Halima.
can't see you though.
Hello. I missed all your poems. The kids were mucking up, so I couldn't get in. But I love the poem you do where you're walking across the crossing in Redfern, and you're feeling tired, and you're carrying your shop. You're going home from work or something, and this guy comes across you and says, "You can do it, sister." I relate to that now that I'm older. It's funny.
I'll have
Do
to
you
send
have
you. Have
somewhere
you
you
got a
can
copy of
find
that
it?
poem? That I haven't got that poem to hand. Working in Redfern was fascinating. It was just, I did have a cold, coughing like now, and I was sort of walking really slowly across the zebra crossing, and all these big lorries were sort of, waited, and they'd all come to a screaming halt and were sort of puffing to get on, and I just had to walk slowly because I had a infected chest or something, and there was a guy past me this isn't a poem, this is just my life. This Aboriginal guy passed me, he had big boots on for some reason, and he stopped halfway across. He was younger, and he sort of more or less mimed to the drivers to just calm down. And he said, "Come on, sister," It was just very touching, so I enjoyed that poem. Halima, I can't see you on the screen. I can only see, I don't know, 5 people.
You can do the little arrow where you see at the top to the
Oh, I
right,
see.
and you'll see her.
Right.
That's where
You
she
know what
is
I look
here.
like, though. I look the same.
Made you big.
There you are. Oh, we started really late because I don't know why my phone, all the reception for phones went down, and I couldn't. So I don't know how.
It sounds like every Zoom meeting I've been on. So that's successful then. Great.
Oh, good. I felt quite relaxed
What
about it because
happened?
it all
Where are you
happened
now?
here. But the computer was all alive. So anyway, we got here together. Oh, there's everything.
Oh, you're back. So you picked up this book that you did. Is that where that poem is about your grandchild?
The grandchild.
Like a lullaby, and it's one of my favorites of yours. This book, the book you picked up and showed us, I think has got a poem in there. Is that where the one that's got the lullaby one, or is it the other one, the other book?
The only lullaby I did was when Sebastian Flynn played an Irish fiddle tune, and I could hear the lullaby, and I wrote a lullaby, but I didn't publish it. Maybe somebody else did. It's lullabies, lots.
It wasn't totally a lullaby. It was you talking to a grandchild.
Was I?
I know,
Yeah.
Mum, you wrote one when you were waiting to hear whether Aaron was born or not. You wrote,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if
Did
you
I publish
published that one.
I
but-
just a minute. Maybe I have got that one. Can you hang? I'll just grab something from the
I
bookshelf.
think it's in that blue book, maybe.
Yes.
Geez, you're good, Daphne. You for me to show you. The blue book, yeah.
Oh well.
You mean
Oh yes, it
In
is
that
blue.
one. Yeah, that's
This
in this
one.
one. Yeah, yeah.
maybe that was the one I wrote when Aaron was on the way?
It's
Oh, I
one
don't
that
know
I
which.
like
I don't.
reading for Poems for Peace, actually, because it's like when you're talking about everyday things, and we'll have to explain to Maya what a duna is, and to
Dunas,
Mana.
they're called something else in Europe, aren't they? What are they called in
Duvet.
Europe?
So do you know what a duna is, Maya?
A duna.
Yeah.
What?
Duna is Australian for duvet.
Oh, a
Duvet.
duvet. Right. Yeah, I have one of those. A do. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
And
and
our
that's,
Prime Minister said we all had to get out from under the doona. That's what he told us
doona.
all, didn't he?
Yeah.
Under the duna. Got
Well,
it.
this little chapbook I made, because people were having them getting grants and
put it
worrying
up a
if
bit more.
made. Can you see it?
Hold it up a bit more to your side, maybe, if you don't want to hide your face. Still can't see it.
I can't see where I am now. Hang on.
No, we can see you, but I see it. It's got all this Australian sun on it. So
I was invited to read at the Darwin Writers Festival, and I made up a few and got them there. I found the one about the grandchild, but there's an earlier one that goes with it called. Have I got time to do these two?
yeah, they're short, and then
This
we can
one's
finish
called
on that
Genesis.
note. That would be nice. Yeah.
But this first one, they're both all about the babies. Genesis. So which comes first, the mother or the baby? Is it only the welcome womb which allows the new, enjoys the unexpected? Or is it the brave new soul that threads the needle through the bead, explodes the small cell, changing all forms, expanding water in the belly? And then this is the one I think you were talking about, Daphne. And Halima, it's certainly the one you mentioned, Waiting, Full Moon. This is Halima's first boy. Waking early, high in the pre-dawn sky, the moon rolls, a golden egg. As I watch, glassless, my sleep-soaked eyes blur and gaze as it shimmers and contracts. The rolling world lowers her load, and the moon trembles, tickled by small treetops. Their fingers catch her carefully, and she nests and settles safely. The night blue pales. The strips of a desert dawn, horizoned bright blue with high pink light, blush the morning in. The moon snuggles away to the west, sleeping. I pad east and see a new rose blossoming to fate the sun. Today I wait, alert for news of the new boy, for him to plunge out to join the southern surf. Welcome, Aaron. It was 11.
That wasn't the one, but okay, maybe some other time.
It was a good one. It was a good one.
They're good, but yeah. So,
I've got to go. Thank you very much, Mardijah,
That's a
and thank
good
you,
point.
Daphne, and thank you.
Oh, it was lovely you can be part of it,
Mana.
Harris.
Bye, Harris.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Bye.
Really good. Really good.
Thanks, Mardijah. It was lovely.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
But
Thank
see,
you so much.